What is MECE and how does it apply to your case interviews? You'll find out in this video. Before we begin, I would like to introduce myself and explain why I'm the right person to teach you about MECE. My name is Davis, and I'm a former Bain management consultant and the founder of my consulting offer, where I've helped thousands of aspiring consultants master MECE and the case interview on their way to landing their dream consulting offer. MECE is a strategy for organizing or dividing things, such as ideas, people, and objects, into groups that are both distinct and comprehensive. But what exactly does this mean? Let's actually simplify it with an example. Imagine that you and I had a jar of marbles, and all the marbles came in one of three colors: red, yellow, or blue. And each marble is one of three sizes. We'll call them big, medium, and small. And let's say that we wanted to sort the marbles. How would we do it? Let's use MECE to help us stay organized. The me in MECE stands for mutually exclusive, which means that when you sort everything, every item should belong to exactly one group or one category. That means that no item can fit into multiple categories. If we're sorting out our jar, for example, we could sort the jars by color. We do a group for reds, a group for yellows, and a group for blues. And each marble would belong to one category, but cannot belong to more than one category. Not mutually exclusive would be if we had categories like red, yellow, blue, and big. That is because a marble can then belong into two groups. For example, if we had a big red marble, then it would belong to both the red marble group and the big group. Thus, when we're counting the marbles, we might double count the big red marble because we count it once in the red category and once in the big category. Thus, it's not mutually exclusive. Why consultants care so much that groupings are mutually exclusive is that you don't want to double count anything and thus skew your analysis. For example, one of the cases I worked at Bain involved understanding the revenues of a tire company and where we can improve it. So if I was not mutually exclusive, the categories might have been revenue from the United States, revenue from Canada, and revenue from truck tires. While having United States revenue and Canada revenue is distinctive because a tire can be sold in the United States or in Canada, but not both, having truck tires would double count since a truck tire could be sold in both the US and under the truck tire category. If I did this and I came to my client with the revenues, they'd been like, wow, your revenues are way off and not trust me. That's why consultants want to be mutually exclusive. But being mutually exclusive isn't enough. You also want to be collectively exhaustive, which means that every item is sorted and none are left out. In our jar example, that would be making sure that all the marbles are sorted into a group. For example, not being collectively exhaustive would be having a group for red marbles and one for yellow marbles, but no other groups. That's because we still have blue marbles that are not accounted for. So we want to have a group for red, a group for yellow, and a group for blue. And of course, you can further break it down. For example, if we wanted to combine the groups and make the groups even smaller and combine more characteristics, we might break the marbles down both by size and color. So we would have big red marbles, medium red marbles, small red marbles, big yellow marbles, medium yellow marbles, small yellow marbles, big blue marbles, medium blue marbles, and small blue marbles. So now you can see the power of being collectively exhaustive, but let's actually think about why it's so important when looking at a case. So you can see here that being collectively exhaustive is helpful for consultants because it means that nothing is left out. Our thinking is comprehensive. For example, there was a case at Bain where I had to figure out how to create a bonus structure for the employees at a certain company. And so I had to break down the employees to make sure that every department had a bonus structure, which was the mandate from the CEO. Let's say that, for example, I grouped this in marketing and sales, but I forgot the engineering team. Then the engineering team will come back and think, hey, why are we left out of the bonus? So you want to make sure you're collectively exhaustive. So in short, being mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive is like organizing a jar of items into particular groups in such a way that every item belongs to one group and all items are accounted for. But of course, in consulting, you aren't going to be sorting marbles all day. So why is MECE so important to consulting? To demonstrate a point, I want to share with you a story of a consulting project where I was putting together a delivery plan for how to get life-saving medicines to locals in Nigeria. To make sure we were able to get the medicine to the right people, I had to group the local population in a way that was MECE because, for example, if I wasn't mutually exclusive, it means that some people would be able to get more medicine, which leaves less medicine for everyone else. So for example, let's say that I was bucketing by age. Then if I had overlapping age such as 0 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 to 80, you can kind of see here that certain people will fall into multiple groups. So for example, if someone's 20 years old, they would fall into both the 0 to 20 and the 20 to 40. Same with the 40 would fall into both groups and 60 into both groups. They might end up getting double the medicine and that leaves less medicine for everyone else. So in order to make sure that everyone only falls into one category and would only get the medicine they need, I would have to change the bucketing to make sure that it's mutually exclusive. So I might do 0 to 20, 21 to 40, 41 to 60, 61 to 80. So that's mutually exclusive. But you also have to be collectively exhaustive. And you might have noticed that this grouping is mutually exclusive, but it's not collectively exhaustive because it doesn't include everyone who might be older than 80. So I actually have to add another bucket, which I'll call the 81 plus. Eventually though, this is the plan that we went out with and everyone was able to get the medicine and we were able to save lives. So with this example, I hope you see how powerful MECE is when it comes to being able to think like a consultant. And because consulting firms know how powerful MECE is and MECE thinking is, they expect their candidates to also be able to think in MECE. So even before you become a consultant, MECE is going to come up in the interview process, in particular in your case interviews. So let's talk about where you can expect it. So let's imagine that you're in a case interview and the prompt is that a tech company with 3 products hired you and your team to increase their profits. After you receive the prompt, the interviewer is going to expect you to structure the case. This is where you have to make a structure, and your structure needs to be MECE. So for example, in our case, you might have noticed that we have 3 products. So you might break up your framework into those 3 products: product A, product B, and product C. In order to know where to increase profits, you might have to understand each of their revenues and each of their costs. So you notice here that we're being MECE here with each product and what we're looking at in terms of profit. Now, let's say that the interviewer likes your framework and they say, hey, you know what? The costs are actually pretty low already for all these products. We actually think the area that we need to improve is the revenue. Which product has the biggest revenue potential? So now you have to do some math. In fact, this is called a market sizing, where you have to estimate the total revenue that each of the products could bring. Well, how would you do this? There's a lot of ways that you can do it. For example, you might look at each product A, product B, and product C, and in order to calculate the revenue, you might break down the customer types. So for example, let's say that this particular company sold to consumers, sold to businesses, sold to governments, and nonprofit organizations. You might break it down to each of these, because you might realize that a consumer might only buy 1 of these a year, businesses might buy 2 a year, government might buy 3 a year, and nonprofits might buy 1 every 10 years. So you can kind of see that their purchase behavior is going to be different, but you want to be able to break it down into a MECE way so you can apply numbers and analysis to figure out what the revenue could be. And let's say that you do this and the interviewer is really impressed and they say, you know what? Product B looks like it has the most revenue that we aren't earning currently. And let's say that you do this and then the interviewer comes back and says, you know what? Product B seems like it has the highest revenue potential. I think one of the things that the client told us is that the marketing for product B isn't as good as it could be. Could you brainstorm ways in order for us to improve our marketing? Now, this goes into another analysis called the brainstorming. And here you could be MECE by breaking down your brainstorming into categories. So for example, you might do offline marketing, such as going to stores, having posters, having trade shows, and you might do online, such as social media or Google search. So you can kind of see here, you can break down your brainstorming into MECE by having 2 buckets, offline and online. So now you see how MECE would apply in your case interviews. And if you're new to casing or want a quick way to think like a consultant and be MECE, here's a technique that I like to use. I call it the X non-X method, which is when I divide categories, I pick one grouping that becomes my X, and I create another grouping called non-X, which is everything not X. We'll actually practice one together. So let's imagine that you and I went to the zoo and we wanted to sort out all the animals in the zoo. I might pick X to be birds, which means that non-X becomes non-birds. So every bird I would put under the bird category, and every other animal I would put under non-bird. So I want to ask you this: what other X non-X can you come up with sorting animals at a zoo? And I promise you, if you practice this, you're going to get better at being MECE. In fact, if you comment below with how you would sort out animals, I'll reply back. So leave a comment below and say something other than bird, non-bird. How would you sort an animal at a zoo? Use the X non-X method, and you'll see how powerful it is. I'm excited to read through all your replies. And in addition, if you're serious about landing a job in management consulting, I'd love to help you. Here on my consulting offer, my team is made up of former interviewers and recruiters from the top consulting firms, and we've helped thousands of people get interviews and land offers at top consulting firms like McKinsey and Bain. And I'd love for you to be our next success story. All you have to do to see if working with us is a good idea is to click the link below and book a free strategy session with my team. But you don't take my word for it. Hear from Catherine, who joined our program and then 3 weeks later landed her job at BCG.